Okay, so if you've ever tried to learn React, you definitely know the feeling. You fire up a tutorial, and all of a sudden you're just drowning in this sea of tools, libraries, and boilerplate code you don't understand. It's super frustrating, and that's why so many of us stumble. But you know what? There's a better way. And in this explainer, we're going to break down the pure React philosophy from Dave Setia to find a much simpler path to mastery.
This quote right here, it's the gut punch every single new React developer feels. You're copy-pasting code, things are kinda sorta working, but you have absolutely no idea why. It's this feeling of being completely lost, and honestly, it's the #1 reason people just give up. But it really doesn't have to be that way.
So, first things first, let's actually put a name to this beast, the React overwhelm. Because understanding the problem, well, that's the first step to conquering it. And this slide, wow, this just captures it perfectly, right? This forest of libraries that so many tutorials throw you into right away. You're told you need React, and Redux for your state, and Webpack to bundle your code, and Babel to transpile it, and React Router for navigation, and suddenly you're trying to learn 5 or 6 things at once, and you're totally lost before you've even written a single line of your own code.
And this is the inevitable result. When you try to learn everything at the same time, you're not building a solid foundation. You're just jamming pieces together in a storm. The second you try to build something a little different, the whole thing just comes crashing down because you never actually understood the core principles to begin with.
So, okay, that's the problem. How do we actually escape the overwhelm? Well, we do it by taking a much more sane, focused approach. And this brings us right to the pure React philosophy.
The core idea is so simple, it's brilliant. Just focus. Pure React is all about learning React, and only React first. You learn the essential concepts by themselves, in isolation, away from all the noise of the ecosystem. You really master the tool before you start adding a bunch of attachments.
I love this house building analogy on the slide. It just makes so much sense. So, step 1, you lay down the rocks. That's your solid foundation in JavaScript. Then, step 2, you pour the concrete. Those are the core concepts of pure React. And only when that solid base is completely set do you move on to step 3, building the walls with other tools like Redux and React Router.
It might feel slower at first, I get that, but honestly, this step-by-step approach, it's actually the fastest path to mastery. By focusing on just one thing at a time, you build this deep, unshakable understanding. And that makes learning the next tool in the ecosystem incredibly fast and easy, because you're just adding it onto a foundation that's already rock solid. Okay, so we get the philosophy, but how do we actually put this into practice? Let's break down the method. The method is this really simple but super powerful learning loop you see here. Step 1, you learn one single new concept. Step 2, you immediately apply it in a small exercise. And then step 3, you just repeat that until it's second nature. It's this cycle of learning and then immediately doing that builds real mastery. But what kind of exercises should you actually do? This is a really important distinction. As the slide shows, you want to avoid building some big prototype for work. That stuff just comes with all this extra baggage. You're worried about architecture, scalability, testing, all things that distract you from learning the basics. Instead, what you want to do is build small, throwaway apps. Their only purpose is to help you learn one specific concept. Once you get it, you could literally just throw the code away without feeling guilty at all. And look, as you're doing these exercises, you gotta resist the urge to copy and paste. I know it's tempting, but like this quote says, you can only get so far that way. Actually typing the code out by hand, even when it feels a little tedious, is what builds those new connections in your brain. It's the difference between passively watching something and actively learning it.
So what exactly is in this core toolkit? What are the absolute essentials you need to master? You might actually be surprised by how short this list is.
First up, components. The easiest way to think about them is like Lego bricks for your user interface. They're these self-contained, reusable pieces that you combine to build your entire application. Everything in React is a component. Next, we have JSX. Now, this can look a little weird at first. It looks like HTML, right? But it's actually living inside your JavaScript files. It's just a special syntax that lets you describe what your UI should look like in a really readable, intuitive way. And behind the scenes, don't worry, it all gets converted to plain old JavaScript. Okay, so how do we get data into those Lego bricks? That's where props come in. They're short for properties, and they're basically like arguments you pass to a function. The really crucial thing to remember here is that they only flow in one direction, from a parent component down to a child, and they are read-only. This one-way data flow is a core idea that makes React apps so predictable and way easier to debug. But what about data that needs to change? Like when a user is typing something into a search bar. That's what state is for. While props are passed in from a parent, state is data that a component owns and manages all by itself. And when that state changes, React automatically re-renders the component to show the update. This right here is the magic key to creating interactive UIs.
And that's basically it. Seriously, that's the core. By mastering just those 4 concepts, components, JSX, props, and state, you are building that solid foundation we've been talking about this whole time. Everything else you hear about in the React ecosystem is built on top of these fundamentals.
And the payoff for taking this focused approach, it's huge. I mean, you won't just use React. You are going to understand it, like deep down. When it's finally time to learn something like Redux or React Router, they won't feel like these confusing new things. They'll just be new tools to add to your belt. You'll finally be able to build with confidence, and you'll be free from that initial overwhelm we talked about.
This right here is the ultimate shift in perspective. That big, scary forest of libraries we saw at the beginning, it totally transforms into a well-organized toolbox. Because you've mastered the fundamentals, you'll know exactly which tool to reach for, and more importantly, you'll know why.
So the path forward is actually really clear now, isn't it? Start small, focus on the core, and build on that solid foundation. You're no longer just a passenger in some random tutorial. You now have a deliberate strategy for mastery. So the only question left is, what's the first small throwaway app you're going to build?